When we look at product liability, we're normally looking at the fact that you put something into the stream of commerce that caused injury to somebody else. That's going to be an intentional act because it wasn't like, I didn't know I put something in the stream of commerce. You made an intentional effort to sell it. So when we start taking a look at product liability, there's a couple different areas. Design defect. That's from the very beginning. You designed something that wasn't good, that was dangerous, that could cause harm to other people. Let's look at lawn darts as an example. You know, it's something that could be dangerous from the very beginning, and you put into commerce, put into a chain where people can use it, that represents a concern. Manufacturing defects. This means that the design wasn't necessarily wrong, but how you manufactured it could be wrong. So there are, for example, all these supplements that are out there. And some of them might have had wrong ingredients inside where it might have caused someone to test positive for a drug that might be a banned drug. And it might be the formula doesn't call for that banned drug in it, but it just happens to enter in through the manufacturing process. That's where someone can claim manufacturing defect. There's also marketing defect. This is often called implied warranty of merchantability, that it should do what it's designed to do. So, if you have a baseball bat that you buy as an example, if it was designed where it's the shell of the bat, as an example, doesn't meet any industry standards. So it's too lively, the ball, when it comes off. That'll be a design defect. If it's manufactured, if it meets all the specifications, but is manufactured in such a way that it collapses on use, that would be more of a manufacturing defect. The marketing defect is if you say this meets Little League, Babe Ruth standards, Major League Baseball standards, whatever it is, and it doesn't. That's an example of that marketing defect, that it's not, doesn't meet this implied warranty of merchantability, because if someone buys it because they're trying to buy a Little League Baseball approved bat to use during a game and it's not really approved by them, then you have a problem there. So those are some of the big foundation areas of product liability, which it's very strict liability because you as the consumer are considered not to have the basic knowledge to make a decision. So you don't have a machine in your house to test a aluminum baseball bat for kids to make sure it meets the core density requirement for Little League Baseball. You're counting on the manufacturer to know what they're doing to sell you the right product. And if it's not the right product, you should not be the one held responsible. They should, because they're selling it under the auspices that it meets these standards. And that's why it's such a heightened duty. It's not simple negligence. It raises to the realm of intentional tort. Now, there's also breach of warranty, which is another thing, which is if you say it will last for X amount of time, and it doesn't. So if you say this should last you for 4 seasons using this bat, and it crumples after the first 10 uses, then that's a violation of the warranty, and they end up breaching that warranty. Now, for that, if you're the user, you normally just get a new bat back. But if that breach of that warranty caused harm to others, they can sue in relation to that. Now, you have strict liability when a product is so dangerous that it shouldn't have been put out into the marketplace from the very beginning. And there probably are examples of that where, like the lawn darts, where you should have realized that this represents a harm. You see it quite often with little products for kids, where it represents a swallowing hazard. And little Johnny doesn't know any better, and he just shoves everything in his throat, and he chokes on it. Well, if you made it for the kid audience, and it represents a choking hazard, and cannot fit through that tube that the Consumer Product Safety Commission has developed as the choking standard. It has to be bigger than that, and if it's smaller than that tube or fits in the tube, then it's a choking hazard. Then that's another example of that strict liability. That the courts want to make sure if you put something in the chain of commerce that is in fact safe. Now, one of the rules of product liability is everyone in that chain of conduct, chain of commerce, excuse me, is potentially liable. So if I'm the manufacturer, I could be liable. If I sell it to John, and he's a wholesaler, and John sells it to Dan, and Dan's the store, and Dan then sells it to whoever buys it, they could sue Dan, John, and myself, because we're all part of the chain of commerce for that product. We all help to sell that product. Now, the exemption to that is that if Dan and John thought this is designed to meet this specification, and they have no knowledge of a design defect, as an example, they will not be held liable. Because who's in the best position to know about design defect is going to be the manufacturer. Also, if anyone tweaks the product, so if you have a situation where someone has a football helmet, and instead of the face guard, which had a couple types of screws, they take off the face guard and put in a new visor system and different types of screws. Well, now you've changed the product. If that wasn't done by the manufacturer, that was done by, let's say, the school, then you have a break in causation. So now you could say, look at, you've changed the product, you've altered the product, it's no longer what it initially was. The manufacturer should not be held liable for that. And so that's one of the things that we try stressing when you look at football helmets and other protective gear. You want the Knox Safe seal, N-O-C-A-S-E. I forget what it stands for, but it's a seal that a helmet or protective gear meets a certain standard. Well, if you have people messing around with a helmet, let's say refurbishing a helmet, how do we know if they know what the hell they're doing? So maybe, you should break that causation chain and not hold the manufacturer responsible for what happened there. So that's an example of that. What courts often take a look at when they look at these kind of issues is the utility argument. That there are some products that are going to be dangerous from just how they are. Just because they're important for society, though, we might say, let's let them go into the chain of commerce. Let's allow people to sell, allow people to buy it. And then they'll take a look at things like that. What about a misuse of a product? If you have, let's say, that baseball bat, and you take it to someone's head and start beating them senseless with it, the person that got beat senseless with it cannot go and sue the bat manufacturer or the sport authority if they bought it from there or wherever and say, well, your product caused my injuries. Because that's not the intended use of the product. For there to be a product liability claim, it has to be in the normal use of that product. And while a lot of people keep baseball bats in their house or apartment in case a burglar comes in, that's not the intended use of the product. And so then you can't sue them for that.